Things are starting to heat up in Miami, and not in a good way. The Dolphins are spiraling, and fans are beginning to lose patience with head coach Mike McDaniel. The question is, if Miami does decide to move on, who steps in next? Today, we're diving into two major names that could shake up the entire Dolphins franchise. Both have been floating around the rumor mill lately, one of them coming straight from inside the NFL world itself. But before we dive deeper into this wild conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. And of course, hit that bell icon so you never miss an update on your favorite NFL stories. All right, let's get into it. The two potential replacements being talked about are John Harbaugh, the current head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, and Rex Ryan, the former Jets and Bills head coach who's now an analyst for ESPN. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would John Harbaugh ever leave Baltimore? He's built one of the most consistent teams in the AFC, made multiple playoff runs, and even brought home a Super Bowl. But here's the twist. There's real noise coming out of Baltimore that some fans want him gone. Even local media and insiders have started talking about possible replacements. It sounds crazy, but the tension is real. And if the Ravens decide to part ways after the season, Miami could be waiting with open arms. Imagine Harbaugh bringing his leadership and experience to South Beach. It's not impossible. If McDaniel can't turn this season around, that door might just open wide in January or February. If John Harbaugh ever became available, it would be one of the biggest storylines in football, and honestly, I think it would be a home run for the Miami Dolphins. The man has proven he can build consistent winners. If Baltimore ever decided to move on, Harbaugh should be at the top of Miami's list, no question about it. Now, some might not realize this, but Harbaugh isn't exactly a young coach anymore. He's 63 years old, which means you might only get 5 to 8 seasons out of him. But those years would likely be some of the most disciplined, focused, and competitive years this franchise has seen in decades, and that's worth it. Here's a quick look at his background. Harbaugh started coaching all the way back in 1984 at Western Michigan as a running backs and outside linebackers coach. He climbed through the college and NFL ranks, spending most of the 2000s with the Philadelphia Eagles as their special teams coordinator, a period when that unit was one of the best in the league. Then in 2008, he took over as head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, and he's been there ever since. 16 seasons, a Super Bowl ring, a Coach of the Year award in 2019, and a reputation for toughness and leadership. His career winning percentage? 61.6% in the regular season and 13-11 in the playoffs. Not bad for a guy who's battled through multiple roster rebuilds and quarterback changes. And one thing that makes Harbaugh stand out, he's not just an offensive or defensive mind. He's a complete football coach. He understands every phase of the game, and that's exactly the kind of leader Miami desperately needs right now. When you look around the NFL today, most new head coaches rise from offensive or defensive coordinator jobs. That's just how the league works now. But John Harbaugh's story is different. Before becoming one of the longest tenured coaches in football, he made his name as a special teams coordinator with the Philadelphia Eagles. He later worked with their defensive backs before taking over the Baltimore Ravens in 2008. That path makes Harbaugh unique. He's not just tied to one side of the ball. He's built from every corner of the game. Some critics say that's a weakness, claiming he doesn't bring an offensive or defensive genius label. But honestly, that's what makes him great. Harbaugh understands how to manage every aspect of a football team: offense, defense, and special teams, all under one vision. That's rare, and it's exactly what Miami could use. Let's be real. If John Harbaugh ever became available, it should be a no-brainer. Yes, his recent playoff runs haven't ended with another Super Bowl, but look at the consistency. Since 2020, he's kept the Ravens competitive every single year. 2020, finished second in the AFC North and reached the divisional round, lost to Buffalo. 2021, missed the playoffs after a tough injury-plagued season. 2022, lost a tight wild card matchup against Cincinnati. 2023, earned the number 1 seed in the AFC but fell short in the AFC Championship against Kansas City. 2024, went 12-5, topped the division again, but lost in the divisional round to the Bills. So yeah, maybe he hasn't lifted another Lombardi lately, but you can't deny the man's ability to keep his team in the fight every single year. For a Dolphins franchise desperate for stability and leadership, Harbaugh feels like the kind of hire that could completely transform the culture in Miami. Right now, the Ravens are sitting at 1-4 through 5 weeks, and it's starting to feel like this season could slip away fast. And when a team with this much talent struggles, the head coach is always going to face the heat. So, is John Harbaugh to blame for Baltimore's playoff failures in recent years? Honestly, yes, at least partly. He deserves some of that responsibility. When you've got one of the best quarterbacks in football in Lamar Jackson, paired with elite defenses year after year, you expect more than early playoff exits. Now, some people say, come on, they've had to go through Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And that's true. Beating Kansas City is like climbing a mountain with no ropes. But here's the thing. Baltimore has only lost to the Chiefs once in the postseason during this stretch. The rest of those playoff losses? Those were games the Ravens could have, and should have, won. And let's not forget, when Harbaugh won Coach of the Year in 2019, the Ravens were one of the most dominant regular season teams in the league, and still got upset by the Tennessee Titans. That kind of collapse still stings fans to this day. So yes, Harbaugh's playoff track record with Lamar hasn't lived up to expectations. But here's the thing. Even with those disappointments, if the Dolphins ever had a chance to bring him in, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because right now, Miami needs stability more than anything. They need a proven leader who commands respect, builds discipline, and brings toughness back to the franchise. John Harbaugh has done that for over a decade in Baltimore. If he ever hit the open market, the Dolphins would be crazy not to make that call. If there's one thing John Harbaugh would bring to Miami immediately, it's stability, something the Dolphins have been desperate for. He's the kind of coach who creates culture, structure, and accountability from day one. Players respect him, they play hard for him, and free agents would line up for the chance to join a team led by him. You'd never have to worry about locker room drama or a lack of leadership. Harbaugh commands respect the moment he walks through the door. If he were ever available, the Dolphins shouldn't hesitate for even a second. It's the kind of move that could completely reshape the franchise. But let's shift gears, because there's another name that started to pop up in the rumor mill. Could there really be interest in Rex Ryan, the former head coach of the New York Jets and Buffalo Bills? Believe it or not, there's been some chatter. NFL insider Tony Pauline has floated the idea that Miami's owner, Stephen Ross, might be keeping an eye on Ryan. And while Pauline isn't exactly the most trusted source in the league, he's been right before, including during the shocking Laramie Tunsil trade. So, could Rex Ryan actually be on the Dolphins' radar? Let's dive into that next. Now, let's give Tony Pauline some credit. His track record isn't flawless, but he's nailed a few big calls in the past, so his reports deserve at least a little attention. According to him, Dolphins owner Stephen Ross could be looking for a disciplinarian-style head coach, someone with experience, toughness, and the ability to command a locker room. That type of leader reminds people of guys like Dan Quinn, who turned Washington around with his hard-nosed, player-first approach. Coaches like that know how to get respect and consistent effort from their players every week. But one of the names tied to Miami through these reports is Rex Ryan, the former Jets and Bills head coach, now an ESPN analyst. And honestly, that's where things get complicated. On one hand, there's value in hiring someone experienced who isn't afraid to hold players accountable. But bringing in Rex Ryan would be, without question, one of the worst moves the Dolphins could make. I genuinely believe it would make things worse than they are now. Yes, he's got charisma. And yes, he once built top defenses. But his time as a head coach ended years ago for a reason. Football has evolved, and Rex hasn't kept up with the modern game. His style might bring noise, but it wouldn't bring results. And trust me, if the Dolphins ever actually went down that road, it would be pure chaos in Miami. If it came down to choosing between another year of Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier or hiring Rex Ryan, I'd take McDaniel and Grier every single time. No hesitation. Let's be honest, Rex Ryan hasn't coached in the NFL since 2016, and that final season in Buffalo ended in complete disaster. He was fired before the last game of the year because his own players had checked out on him. That kind of chaos doesn't work in today's NFL. You can't lead a locker room by fear and outdated motivational tactics anymore, not when players have more power and voice than ever. And it's not like Rex was ever an elite head coach to begin with. His career record sits at 61-66, meaning he lost more games than he won. Sure, he made a splash early in his career, taking the Jets to 2 straight AFC championship games with Mark Sanchez under center. But that was lightning in a bottle. Those defenses were loaded with guys like Bart Scott, Darrelle Revis, and David Harris. After those first 2 seasons, everything went downhill fast. No more playoff appearances, locker room tension, and a steady decline that ended with his firing in Buffalo. People remember Rex Ryan as this fiery, entertaining personality on TV, and that's the problem. The media version of Rex is fun, loud, and confident. But the coach version? Outdated, inconsistent, and unable to adapt. So, to any Dolphins fan out there who thinks Rex Ryan should be the next head coach, take off the analyst blinders. He's not the guy to fix this franchise. The Dolphins need leadership and direction, not another headline. Here's the thing. Being entertaining on TV doesn't mean you can lead an NFL locker room. Rex Ryan has a big personality, he's funny, and sure, he knows how to get people's attention. But that doesn't make him a good head coach. Anyone can sound smart or confident on camera. Anyone can create great football content online. But coaching at the highest level? That's a whole different world. And Rex Ryan has already proven he's not built for it. He wasn't a good head coach then, and he wouldn't be now. So yeah, I don't want Rex Ryan anywhere near this Dolphins organization. Not even close. But what about you? Would you take the chance on him? Let me know. Type H for hire or P for pass in the comments. Now, circling back to Tony Pauline's report, he mentioned that Miami could target a former head coach with experience and a strong presence in the locker room. Someone who knows how to demand respect and keep players accountable. And if that's truly the direction Stephen Ross wants to go, there are a few realistic names out there right now that fit that mold. At the top of the list, Mike McCarthy. The former Packers and Cowboys head coach might be available soon, and while his tenure in Dallas ended on a sour note, he's a smart offensive mind who's always earned respect from his players. Honestly, it sometimes felt like McCarthy just needed to escape Jerry Jones' shadow. Another intriguing name, Robert Saleh. He's currently the defensive coordinator in San Francisco and, in my opinion, was treated unfairly by the Jets. The guy brought energy, discipline, and passion, but got stuck with bad front office decisions. If Miami wants toughness and leadership, Saleh would be a powerful choice. And of course, if any major names like Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh somehow become available, they'd instantly jump to the top of Miami's wish list. Robert Saleh is the real deal, a strong motivator and one of the best defensive minds in the game today. We've seen how he helped build that 49ers defense into an absolute powerhouse, and that's not something you can overlook. A sneaky name that could surprise people? Vance Joseph. The former Broncos head coach and current defensive coordinator has quietly done an incredible job bringing life back into Denver's defense. I'm not saying he's a top 5 pick for Miami, but he's someone worth keeping an eye on if he ever gets another shot at being a head coach. Right now, though, my top 2 realistic candidates remain Mike McCarthy and Robert Saleh. Both bring experience, leadership, and the ability to command a locker room, something the Dolphins desperately need. Another veteran option could be Ron Rivera. Personally, I'd be cautious about that one, but he's still worth an interview. Sometimes a conversation can reveal whether someone still has that spark left to lead. Now, before we go any further, if you love passionate NFL talk like this and want to stay up to date on every Dolphins rumor and headline, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. If Miami decides to go younger, a few interesting first-time candidates could also enter the conversation. Joe Brady, though still young, has shown flashes of offensive creativity. There's also Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator who's followed Jim Harbaugh from Michigan to the Chargers, a sharp football mind with serious potential. And let's not forget Chris Shula, grandson of the legendary Don Shula, now serving as defensive coordinator for the Rams. That family legacy alone gives his name some extra weight. I've also been high on Zach Orr, the young and fiery defensive coordinator for the Ravens. He's got the passion and leadership you love to see, but he might still need more time before stepping into a head coaching role. The Ravens' defense has battled injuries all year, and while that's not all on him, it shows he's still developing as a play caller. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you want more updates, trade rumors, and analysis surrounding the Miami Dolphins, this is the place to be.